Thank you so much, Dr. Laird, for walking us through the whole area of technology and mental health. As I listened to you, I was thinking when I was in high school and even my first year in university, how it was so different. You travel around the world, and you've been an educator and a scholar for over 25 years. When you look back the last 20 years, how has technology affected mental health in the lives of students?
Well, I think, as we heard in the talk, technology is all around us. There was a time, I can think about coming to Trinity Western University and there was no internet, no cell phones. And I can remember a time when we were still typing on typewriters and handing pages and coming across the campus. And I can remember students coming in the early 90s saying, well, we need Wi-Fi, and we didn't even know what Wi-Fi was. Everyone was plugging into a wall in order to get the internet. And slowly, technology started to be something that was all around us, in our rooms, in our classrooms, in open spaces. And as we moved from having Wi-Fi to now having cell phones with Wi-Fi and access to the internet, I think that's where we really saw the intrusion of technology at all levels of our daily lives. I have 6 children at home, and what's interesting is to see the effect of technology on the children I've had who are now 13 up to 22. And where we wouldn't allow our children to have a cell phone until they were in high school, with my oldest daughter, and I remember some of her friends had cell phones. With my youngest son, who's 13, by the time he was sort of 8 years old, everyone in his class had a cell phone, and he was one of the last ones to get a cell phone. And it was a big deal to get a cell phone and to be on Snapchat and to be talking to his friends. And I remember episodes in my own children's lives when they were facing conflict, especially conflict with their peers at school. And I remember one night when my oldest daughter had a conflict with her friends, and she kept hearing her phone ping. And so she was trying to go to sleep, and she couldn't go to sleep. And she would wake up and she would read the message, and every message she read made things worse, and every ping of her phone. And I said, put your phone away, don't listen to your phone. But every time she heard the sound of a message on her phone, she couldn't get away from her phone. And it ruined her night. It made it difficult for her to go to school the next day. She was challenged performing academically at school. And this conflict that in my day, when I was a child, would have been over the day before, and it wouldn't have come back up till you saw the person the next day. That conflict leaked into her entire evening, her night, and stopped her from being productive, stopped her from doing the work she had to do for school. And so I think that's one of the big changes we have today in technology, is that it's all around us, it's at all times of day and night, and there's really no escape for most people from the intrusive technology around us. And so when we have problems or issues, they're always present, and you can't get away from them and escape them very easily.
Times have really truly changed.
Yeah.
I remember I grew up on a street where we were all on the same line, and you always had to wait before you picked up the phone.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Laird, we've got a question from Brian Mercer. Brian asked, what effects does the 5G has on the world?
Well, I think when we talk about 5G, we're talking about even more intrusive technology. So 5G is technology that is faster. 5G is technology that is more adaptive. It innovates more quickly. It can sense and respond in a more effective way than previous versions of technology. And so the challenge we have is, I think 5G is the first challenge, the challenge we face today. But we have to understand that technology is constantly changing. Research shows that in a given field of study today, our knowledge in that field around the world doubles approximately every 13 months. And what that means is that the ability for companies to innovate, to adapt, to change, to more effectively impact the lives of people and get inside the lives of people, is more robust, and it's developing all the time. So 5G is the next phase of technology, but it's just the next one. 2 years from now, there'll be something else and something else. We talk about the metaverse, and we're talking about artificial intelligence and bots in our systems, and bots that respond to us in human ways. And these new technologies are now becoming more and more common. And the fear is that humans have more and more ways to retreat from reality and get away from the real world, and not to deal with the real world, and technology becomes a way for that to happen.
And this actually leads very well to the question that Odongo Bernard is asking. He goes, what measures should governments put in place to reduce the high risk of mental disorders among young generation and older generations with regards to new rapid innovative ideas towards developing new technology which has kept changing in the area of technological advancement? And I think you talked a little bit about that. Well, we're moving with 5G. Next year will be on something else.
Right. Yeah, great question, Odongo. And I think the challenge we've got is that human beings are naturally disposed to engage in what we call self-protective mechanisms. They are engaged to protect themselves, to defend themselves, to support themselves. And when we face challenges, and this is the challenge with all addictions, not just internet or gambling addictions, it's with all addictions, is people are most vulnerable to addiction when they face the greatest personal challenges in their life, conflict and issues. The reason for that is that they want to escape. They want to defend themselves, to escape the challenges, to get away from the problems they face. And then they get drawn into addiction, whether it's alcohol or drug addiction, whether it's pornography addiction, whether it's gambling addiction online. So the issue with technology is its presence all around us at all times really makes those addictions at our fingertips. It removes the barrier. So just like technology helps us with education because it removes the barrier of time and space, it also makes addiction easier because it removes the barrier of time and space. So where if I had a gambling addiction in the past, I would have to go to a casino, right? I would have to physically go to a place where I could find gambling and go. Now I don't. I can go downstairs in my home and get into gambling addiction. So with pornography addiction, it's the same thing. With video game addiction, where I was a child, I'd have to go to an arcade. Today we don't. We go on the internet, we can play video games all night. And I think that's the real change that's happened with technology, is how ubiquitous it is and how ever present it is in our lives.
It leads me to the next question. Josh Wang from China. He says, Dr. Laird, with the rapid development of artificial intelligence, people's lives will be greatly changed in the future when most jobs will be replaced by computers. If our jobs are replaced by intelligent machines in the future and billions of people become redundant, how can graduates like us who are not in software technology find a job in the future?
Well, that's a great question, Josh. I think my talk has indicated that there's lots of opportunities for jobs in the area of mental health and well-being. That's a bit of a joke, but I think the reality is that human beings will always have roles and responsibilities in society. I don't think technology and artificial intelligence and computers will replace humans, but the jobs we have may be fundamentally different. So we may have programming jobs, we may have jobs in digital analytics, market analytics, and then there'll be jobs in mental health that will always be there, social service, and jobs, for example, with the pandemic we're finding in public health and in health services. So I think there are areas that will grow in terms of the employment opportunities, even if there are other areas that may shrink as technology changes the types of jobs that we may have in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Laird. Mugambi Gilbert from Uganda says, many people have been facing a challenge of advancing technology on a daily basis and looking forward to carrying out online jobs. And this seems to have affected the mental health of many because they are being cheated by telecom operators providing the services. What advice can you give to people who are in such conditions, and what means can be taken as a measure for these people to get work done efficiently?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think I'm trying to understand. There's a lot of parts to the question. I'm trying to understand the question. And, you know, what's happened, especially what's happened has been exacerbated during COVID, during the pandemic. And a lot of people today work from home. They work jobs where they're doing their work on the computer from home. And what's happened in many of those jobs is there's been a blurring of home and work. And people can't get away from work because it's always around them because it's in their home. And they can't get away from their home because they don't get the retreat of going to work. And so this lack of compartmentalization of roles in our lives and of places where we do these jobs has made people's lives much more difficult and challenging. I think the main question here is around a sense of being cheated by telecom operators who provide services and are not providing good working conditions for employees. And I believe that is a significant problem around the world, because with the advance of technology, we can find employees all around the world to do jobs. And many companies will find those people to do the jobs where they can pay them the lowest price possible for that work. And that cheapens the labor, makes people feel cheated in the process, and also transitions jobs from certain countries to other countries and places all around the world. And I think that's a challenge we really have to face. And I also think if you take labor in the telecom and other industries and move it to countries where cost and labor is cheaper, you're not going to provide the kinds of mental health support for employees in those countries, because you're trying to deliver the service at the lowest possible price. And this is where I think there's a responsibility for employers and for governments to enact legislation or to have policies that ensure the mental health of employees working in data centers and in other places is robust and strong.
Thank you. The next question comes from Christopher. I think Christopher is in Nigeria, and he is like a father's cry. He goes, I found that technology is a double-edged sword for mental health. I was struck by the amount of cyberbullying I recently faced over my views on the issue. On the other hand, he says, my 9-year-old recently downloaded an obstetrician's guide for kids, and the internet has helped her decide in her young mind to become an obstetrician. Technology offers brave new yet scary world. How can I mold her mind with such vastness of data available to her? I find that my children fact check me all the time.
You know, it's interesting. When I was young, my father had 2 sets of encyclopedias. So when I wanted to find information, I would go downstairs to my father's study. My father was a Baptist minister and a missionary. And I would go down to his study and I would look at his encyclopedias, and he would have a Bible, and they would be resources I would use to find information. My young people, or my children, go to Google. That's where they find the information. They search, they go to Google, and we find the most random facts on Google. You know, you're watching a show and you want to find out how old an actor is or whether they're married or how many children they have, and they can find all that information out. So technology really is, as you've stated, Christopher, a double-edged sword. On the one hand, technology has helped us to expand the base of knowledge, to grow our information base, to evolve our society at a rapid pace, and to provide a more equal playing field for education around the world. Technology provides an opportunity for people all around the world to gain a base of high quality education. You know, Trinity Western University is developing FAR centers, developing GXP, a Global Express Pathway program, for students all around the world to be able to get Trinity's high quality education with facilitated learning, with qualified people supporting them all the time. That wouldn't be possible even 5 years ago, what we're doing today. And so, where technology on the one hand provides those opportunities, it provides, you know, as Christopher said, for his daughter to think about becoming an obstetrician and really understand what that might look like in a career. Technology also can become a barrier in people's lives where they get stuck inside technology so much that they can't move forward in their lives, or they become part of virtual play, for example, where they can't live in the real world anymore because they haven't developed the social skills. They don't spend time in real relationships, and their time is spent in video games at all times. And so I think that the key for us as parents is to understand the limits of technology, to teach our children how to use technology and not to get used by technology, to help them to understand the value of technology, but to also give our children and ourselves technology sabbaticals. You know, a technology sabbatical is a day or a few hours or a weekend or a week of not being on technology. And I think technology sabbaticals, breaks from technology, are really healthy for people in today's day and age. And finding time to consciously say, for 5 days or for 4 days, I'm going to stay off technology.
You know, it's interesting for me to hear you say that. In my head, I'm going, Phil is right, but then the little voice is telling me, no, he's not.
There's no way.
There's no way. You and I travel a lot together. And every time, like if we go to China or India, the first thing when we land, I'm not thinking about food, about my room. I'm thinking about, do I have internet? Do I have the technology so that I can get back to my students? Right. And as I listened to you talk, I felt like, am I addicted? Is there something wrong with me?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think we're all addicted on some level. We all, and I don't think we're addicted to technology. We're addicted to information, and we're addicted to knowing, certainty. So I'm not addicted to technology, but I want to know what's happening next. I want to know my calendar, what's happening next on my day, or I want to know how to get in touch with my wife when I need to talk to her about something. So I have my phone, because I probably wouldn't remember her phone number if I didn't have my phone and have it punched into my phone. So I think those are the things we're addicted to, this sense of certainty, this comfort that comes from knowing what's happening next. And technology has given, you know, I was just traveling in Phoenix. My sons were playing baseball in Phoenix. I just got back a few days ago. And, you know, without Google Maps, I would have been lost in Phoenix. My kids don't even know how to find streets without Google Maps. They could drive to the same place 5 times, and they wouldn't be able to drive there without Google Maps showing them exactly how to get there. So we have really become dependent on technology in many ways. And this is the idea of cyborgization. Without technology, many of us are lost in the world today.
That's true. Phil, I got another question from Clifton Jones in South Africa. Clifton says, thank you, Dr. Laird, for the thought-provoking talk. In creating robust learning experiences, how can we manage impact on mental health issues as we use technology to encourage those learning experiences?
It's important to understand the needs that humans have. And humans have certain needs that transcend technology. They have relational needs, spiritual needs for spiritual growth, identity needs. Is there a community that I have the attributes to belong to and that want me to belong to that community? For our young people today, that's among the most important questions they ask themselves. Is there a place where I can belong? So the nature of our intrinsic psychological needs, as a Christian, I believe a core need we all have is to relate to God in a meaningful way and for God to relate to us. And as a Christian, we believe that's through Jesus Christ. I think these core needs are always present. And we have to ask ourselves the question, is technology helping me, right, to better attend to those needs, to better solve those needs in my own life? Or is technology hindering me from solving those needs and making my way in understanding who I am, how I relate to others, where do I belong, and how do I find meaning and purpose in my life?
Thank you. Dr. Ronke Akinola from Nigeria says, aside from personal discipline, what other measures do you suggest individuals put in place to mitigate against these addictions? Do you think idleness contributes to this challenge?
Yeah, I definitely think idleness contributes to the challenge. So the boredom of sitting by yourself. And there is a vicious cycle. Our young people become adept at using technology, they use technology. And in that use of technology, they haven't developed the same level of social skills to relate to their peers and relate to their parents, relate to adults. And I find that there's a lack in many of our young people. And because of that, they're not in as many social relationships. Therefore, they're spending more time alone. In spending more time alone, they end up idly going on technology because that's ever present, and you get this cycle. The cycle where the more they spend time on technology, the less adept they are at engaging in meaningful social relationships. The more they're idle, the more they spend time on technology. And that is a vicious cycle that becomes really challenging. One of the things that I think parents need as tools to use with their young people from a very early age when you're raising your children is to have defined technology breaks in your home. Take the cell phones away from your kids for 5 or 6 hours. Say, I'm collecting all your cell phones at 8 o'clock. No cell phones after 8 o'clock. You can do whatever you want. You can read, you can talk to each other, you can play a game together, but there's no cell phones after 8 o'clock. And then the children in your home can tell all their friends, I'm talking about teenagers, that you're not allowed to be on the cell phone after 8 o'clock. If it's structured well from an early age, children can adapt to that environment, and their friends and others in the social world will know that that's what they do. And if it's learned at an early age, young people will learn how to do without and be able to manage without technology all the time.
Thank you. A question from Dr. Renuka in Chennai, India. She says, how do we as educators indicate the difference between the actual reality within human world and the artificial reality that is being created alternatively? How do we consciously separate the two planets, the real and the unreal one? There's a danger of both merging sometimes in the future.
Yeah, this is a real challenge, and it's a challenge with our young people for sure, and it's a challenge with all of us. We are all information processors, and we process information through filters, and I would call them self-serving filters that protect our sense of self. And because of that, we gravitate towards information that confirms our existing biases, that supports our own view of ourselves and our own worldview. And this is one of the challenges we face right now around the world, which is misinformation, right? Or information that is in error over the internet. Because of these natural human tendencies, we will sometimes tend to gravitate towards false information that's presented over the internet in the belief that it's true, more because we want to believe that it's true than because it really is. And if we want so badly to believe something is true, then we will not do the due diligence of discernment of trying to, research in a way. And this is one of the reasons why education is so important. Education today, in the 21st century, must teach our young people how to use technology properly, how to be a sophisticated and academically wired user of technology, to check sources, to do proper research, to understand what good sources are, informing opinions, views, and ideas.
Thank you. And I'm going to go back to South Africa. Anita Chetty goes, good morning from South Africa. My 11-year-old daughter life revolves around technology. In the absence of connectivity, she's bored. How do we bridge the gap between the reliance on technology and the importance and the basic need to read books?
Well, I think there's an extension between two things in your question that may not be connected. One, you've said without connectivity she is bored, but then you're saying that she needs to read books. And I think that's a challenge for many of our young people. Many young people today don't read books. My children don't really read books, and yet they're very informed, and they read a lot of information in technology that they find on technology. I think what we have to do is be careful not to say, don't go on technology, and the alternative is you have to read books. Because for many young people today, books are simply not stimulating enough to keep them engaged. Because of the use of technology in their lives, their brains are wired for a higher level of stimulation. And so if the goal is to get them off of technology, we have to find an alternative that has stimulating experiences that are sufficient to keep them in ways that are not active in technology. So my children play sports, which is a stimulating way of going out, being social, engaging with others without using technology. There are other things you can do, like doing things that are exciting, taking them to a theme park, taking your children to a sporting event or to an opera or show. Different things we can do that are human interaction and engagement without technology, but maybe might provide a higher level of stimulation than reading books. I do think many of our young people today have been technologically conditioned away from reading books. And that's a challenge, a different challenge that we're talking about today.
Dr. Laird, I want to thank you. I know our time is up, and it's been truly a pleasure to have you talk to us and reflect on technology and mental health. Yeah. Dr. Laird, again, I want to say thank you for making time to share with us and interacting with our audience. We had great questions this evening. And now we're going to take a moment and announce the lucky winner for the $50 Amazon credit card. And the winner is Yemei Ni. Congratulations, Yemei. I will be getting in touch with you and passing on the Amazon credit card later on. Now, I want to invite you to register and to join us for our next episode on April 14th, when our speaker will be Clifton Jones, presenting on the topic, the epic quest towards resilient community. Registrations are now open. As before you log off, just register, and would love to have you again on the 14th of April. We hope to see you on the 14th, and thank you so much. Back to you, Sushil.